Board-certified psychiatrist Dr. David Henderson joins us in this news break to talk about what we can do and how big of a problem this is. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
So what are we talking about here? I think a lot of people would say, oh, well, I'm stressed at work too, but this is a different level where maybe professional or outside help might be necessary.
And is it more on women or?
Well, one of the studies that was performed by the American Psychological Association showed that, one, women are more likely to report stress in the workplace than men. So there may be some reporting bias that shows women are more open about it, they're more willing to talk about it. So that may be one of the factors. Certainly, pressure for women is higher, and it's because of something we call stereotype threat. And that is that when a woman walks into the workplace, if she is aware of it, there is already a sense that there's a stereotype, there's a bias about my gender, and she works hard to overcompensate for that stereotype, and it produces somewhat of a vicious cycle in terms of her performance. And that's in and of itself is a challenging factor that men perhaps don't have any awareness of, and that makes it very difficult, more stressful for a woman, I believe, in those circumstances.
And it might almost seem like it's a sign of weakness. Maybe that's why more men are not reporting it. What do you think going forward as we wrap up with psychiatrist Dr. David Henderson? What do you think going forward that employers and workplace managers can do to help manage this?
Well, again, one is employers can do something, but I think more the folks that are feeling the stress, the one key issue that I tell folks is to use humor. When you're facing stereotype threat, using humor, learning to laugh at yourself, learning to laugh at the circumstances, and learning to laugh at the idiosyncrasies of the people around you. Think of yourself living perpetually in the show The Office and try to find humor in some of those infuriating situations. And I guarantee you, as Peggy Noonan said, humor is the buffer to life's stress. And I think that's the most important factor to take away from that.
Great information.
I think, it is. And it's great advice. Thank you, Doctor.
Dr. David Henderson, we appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
You know, it's always a stressful day for me, and sometimes I feel like it will never go away, and apparently I'm not alone when it comes to women in the workplace, and I want to find out why. So on our WHBC Newsline right now, I have board-certified psychiatrist Dr. David Henderson. Good morning, Dr. Henderson.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, I'm looking at this survey. They're talking about women and their stress level at work. So tell me a little bit about what this survey showed.
Well, I think the survey is a bit misleading. There's a number of other studies that have been done by the American Psychological Association showing that women are actually more likely to report stress in the first place compared to men. So there may be some bias there. We could also focus on, all the number of different, elements of juggling, home and work-life balance, but that's common, I think, too, for men and women as well. The main thing that I think is the issue is what we call stereotype threat, and that is when a woman walks into the workplace, particularly if it's a workplace that's primarily male-dominated, there's an automatic sense of, I am, a stereotype here. There's this stereotype that exists, and so I have to overcompensate for that stereotype, and it generates a lot of anxiety. It generates a lot more effort, and it creates a lot more stress and can be counterproductive in many ways.
Well, we had always hoped that, women were moving forward in all of this, but do you think that women feel underappreciated at the workplace?
I think maybe underappreciated, but also, again, that idea that I am other than, and so I have to work harder to prove my worth, to prove my intelligence, to prove my capabilities. And the studies that we do show that when you notify someone of the stereotype, for instance, women aren't as organized as men, you tell someone that, well, they go into it trying to be more organized, but what happens is that takes up from their short-term working memory, makes it harder for them to focus on the task at hand, and then adds to the anxiety and becomes this vicious cycle. So what I tell a lot of women that are struggling with that stereotype is there's a number of things you can do. One, the key issue is using humor as a means of dealing with some of the injustices, some of the stereotypes and the things that you're experiencing where you know it's wrong, you know it's incorrect, but it's still there. Learn to laugh at yourself, learn to laugh at the circumstances, and learn to laugh at the idiosyncrasies of the other people in the office. And I guarantee you that's going to help reduce the tension that you feel in a threatening environment like that.
And that doesn't mean that certainly excusing people for inappropriate things, right?
Certainly not. And you need to know the boundaries. You need to know the policies and procedures on how to report and address things that are blatantly violations of those procedures. But let's face it, any environment is stressful, and there are subtle things that are not necessarily reportable or issues that we can deal with directly. And so you've got to learn to have the resolve to kind of push through that. And humor is one way to do so.
All right, very good. Dr. David Henderson, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, there is a new study out, and it shows that 70% of women ranked their work stress levels at a 5 or higher out of 10. Almost half of women also say they are working at least 1 extra hour a day.
Board-certified psychiatrist Dr. David Henderson on the KOGO News Live Line. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
So we're talking about women and their extra stress. Is it any different than men, and how?
I certainly think it's different, and I don't know whether I would say it was more or less necessarily, but unique to the circumstances. And there's a number of factors as to why. Let's first point out, though, the American Psychological Association has studied this extensively and shown that women are more likely to report the stress levels that they're experiencing and also report physiological symptoms of anxiety as opposed to men. So whether there's a difference there in the willingness to talk about emotions and talk about what the stress at work is doing, there may be a difference there. But one of the key factors that I've seen for women in the workplace is that there is what we call stereotype threat, particularly in an environment that's dominated by men. Women walk into it with that stereotype, recognizing that there's a bias there that says, I can't do my job as well as a man. So there's a desire to compensate for that, work even harder and more aggressively to overcome that stereotype. And what we see is sometimes that can be a vicious downward spiral in terms of the level of stress that women feel.
Now, again, this study was about women. Do women internalize stress more than men do, or just handle it very differently?
No, I don't know if they do, except for the fact that there is a reporting aspect to the stress. So women, for example, again, the American Psychological Association shows that women value their friendships more as a part of their identity. They value things that are going on at home as much as they do at work. So there may be an aspect to that, you know, women have a lot of things to juggle, and the media and sort of the culture that we put out there is such that women have to have all these different hats that they wear, and it can be extremely difficult to compartmentalize. So certainly the challenge there is learning to find the balance, learning to find the boundaries that are appropriate, and how much do I invest in each of these areas of my life to find significance and value within me as a person.
So how do you prevent workplace stress from escalating into a full-blown mental health issue?
Well, the first is to know the signs and the symptoms that you're experiencing stress. And one of the issues is stress impairs working memory. So if you find your performance declining and you notice that this is not normal to you as a person, you recognize your capabilities, that may be an issue in and of itself. If you're experiencing physiological symptoms like increased heart rate, tremor, headaches, tension, those things, that's a sign as well. But you've got to recognize the signs, and then you've also got to know the boundaries that exist at the workplace. if I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm feeling that there is a greater responsibility on me, I need to know how to report it, who to report it to, and who to go to ask for help. And that's really necessary. And then one of the last aspects that I tell folks is use humor. Use humor as a means of buffering against the stress that you face in the workplace. I guarantee you that will help.
That is board-certified psychiatrist Dr. David Henderson with us here on the KOGO News Live line. Doc, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.